I'm with the voice of South Australian harness racing, Jim Jacques. Jim, how long is it since you've been calling?
Torrey, good question. I think I started for the radio in 1997, around about there, I'd say, and became primary harness commentator in 99. Terry McAuliffe was the primary harness commentator, and he went to the Gallops, and then I took the position as primary harness commentator. So I remember that purely and simply because the first ever SA Cup I called was in the year 2000, so I remember that as a bit of a milestone.
And what won it, do you remember?
Safe and Sound. John Justice got there by nose, beat Sorrento's Star right on the line. It was a pretty close finish. I was probably a bit stupid or a bit gutsy for having a shot at the photo, but I picked Safe and Sound, but he won by about 6 millimetres. There was nothing in it. It was a good finish.
Well, that's appropriate because I think Safe and Sound sums Jim Jacques up pretty well. Mate, how did it start?
Look, I think if people don't like me as a commentator, they can blame my cousin Wayne. Wayne Jacques, he was president of the South Australian Harness Racing Pony Association. Their commentator disappeared. I forget who it was, but they needed a commentator to call the pony races, and I started calling them here in 1985, I think it was. Then about 2 years after that, I started calling the trials here for BOTRA, Breeders, Owners, Trainers and Reinspersons Association, in about 87 or 88, and I called the trials for about 10 years. Tried to get a job commentating, couldn't, and eventually I got one, but it took a while. It was like a 15-year apprenticeship to get one.
Perseverance counts. I actually have known Wayne for 40 years. We worked in the South Australian Gas Company together.
Yeah, I know, and he spoke highly of you, which I don't know why, but he has.
No, I don't either. I'll keep him as a friend now.
No, Wayne was instrumental in me commentating, and even with cycling as well. He helped out in that area. Terry Cotton, who was calling athletics, was looking for the South Australian Cycling Federation on behalf of Mike Turner to find a commentator for cycling. Terry Cotton couldn't do it. He asked Wayne for a bit of help, and Wayne suggested me, and now we've gone on to me calling the biggest sporting event in South Australia with the Santos Tour Down Under, which by today, this morning actually, I've been at a breakfast where they've named the routes for 2015. So, yeah, Wayne's he's been instrumental in me being a commentator for sure.
Well, what are some of the best horses you've called?
Black's a Fake. I thought he was a good thing winning the Inter-Dominion here in 2007, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was 2007, the last time we had the Inter-Dominion here. And he was probably one of the better horses that I've called. I've called Courage Under Fire was really explosive, winning the SA Cup here. I think that was 2001. He broke the track record in doing that. It was 43-degree heat. I've got to see some really good horses. Smoking Up has been spectacular as a horse to call, you know. And the Caribbean Blaster Smoking Up SA Cup, where Caribbean Blaster got 2-3 metres in front and Smoking Up kicked back. That was a really memorable race indeed, and a great performer.
Jim, I've worked in the thoroughbred industry, and so has our photographer out here, Wally Bulliger, and I said to Wally that night, have you ever heard a noise like that anywhere, anytime? And he said no. The noise coming out of that grandstand was tremendous.
Yeah, and look, I did speak with a few people. In fact, I'll tell you this, John Bandick, who's been a follower of harness racing for 60 years, he said exactly the same thing. He'd been to the trots for 60 years and he'd never heard a crowd response as big as that. And it was exciting. It was an exciting race. It was an epic race, and it's a race that harness followers here in South Australia and those that watched it on television will never forget. It was just a sensational race.
Well, Alex Kay was then the owner of Bet Easy, and I'd only just secured him as a sponsor, and he came over to the race, and he's also part owner of Smoking Up. Well, he was crying. He was a grown man crying.
Oh, he's just a sook, isn't he? No, he's very sentimental, and so is Lance Justice, you know. And look, we're hoping that Smoking Up might make his way for his big farewell, a bit like what Sokiola did. Like Lance loves coming back to South Australia because, let's face it, he was born in Victoria, but he had his upbringing here in South Australia. He learnt his craft here. He loves coming back, and he still feels like he's part of South Australia. And look, when he won the Trotters Inter-Dominion in 2007 with Uncle Patrika, there was that South Australian flavour, purely and simply because Lance trained and drove him, but also Colin Croft as an owner. So, I mean, we still claim that as a South Australian victory, even though the horse was trained in Victoria.
No, we'll take him, and there's a bit of a rumour at the moment that Mark Billiger and Lance are very good mates, as you know. There might be a match race coming up with Frank and Trigger.
Okay, so Mark's going to take the drive, or is he just going to be mediator for Darren and Lance to have a crack at each other?
Haven't got that far. Did I say Mark? I apologise. I meant Darren. Yeah, I meant Darren. I think he'll take the drive for sure. Darren. That's right. Yeah, the owner-trainer. Yeah, well, that's only a rumour.
Okay, all right. Well, that'll be good. Good to see. And, look, Darren will be there for any challenge, and I'm sure that Lance will be as well. But, looking forward to that clash if it does actually happen. And that'll be a race to call in itself.
But I've got to touch on this. You achieved international recognition with one of your calls a few years back when you lost your voice but kept plugging away during the call. It was sensational.
Look, that was a long time ago now, Torrey. That was nearly 3.5 years ago.
Is that right?
Yeah, time's gone by. I remember the race well. I probably shouldn't have been here at work because I knew that my voice was failing over the weekend, but I called the night before at Port Pirie and we were chock-a-block with commentators. We didn't have any spares, so I had to call the meeting at Port Pirie, and I felt that my voice was getting worse the night before. And I thought, well, I've called at Port Pirie when I probably shouldn't have, so I thought I'd go to Globe Derby and call. And it was race 1, so I didn't even get through race 1. I remember the race well. Elia Rose was the horse that won the race. She probably got more coverage of her win. It was the first ever race win for Toby Ryan and the proud owners. But I will say that she probably got more coverage than Blacks of Fate than when he won the Into the Dominion, which is a bit unfair on Blacks of Fate. But look, it was an infamous call, I suppose. I tried to get through it. I was asking for a bit of help at the 400. It didn't come. I was asking for help at the 200. It didn't come, so I just had to keep soldiering on. And no one took over from me, and there was no one there alongside of me to take over. But yeah, I just kept going. Look, I knew before the race that I was in trouble and I might struggle. I rang Brenton Yates, who was the likely replacement for me. He was 2 hours away. He was out shopping with his daughter Matisse, and they're south, so he was 2 hours before he could get someone to look after Matisse and come to work and take over. But my voice ran out before he got here, so yeah, that was part of it, I suppose. But yeah, look, there was a lot of coverage. A lot of people wanted to talk about it. I think the media got it wrong, to be quite honest, because that was race 1 on the program, and we all know that the final race of the program, that's when Dani Hill had her really bad accident, all right, which took the side of her eye, and a lot of the radio stations, when they were interviewing me, wanted to purely talk about my voice. And I said, well, listen, we had a really bad incident yesterday where a young girl, really talented driver, the only South Australian female to drive 100 winners in the season, got hurt bad, but they didn't want to talk about that. So I think the media got that part of it wrong. Good to see that Danny's back driving and driving winners as spectacular as usual, which is really good, and I'm really happy about that. But yeah, I think the media got it wrong that day, to be quite honest, where they wanted to talk about my race where I lost my voice and probably shouldn't have gone to work anyway, whereas we had a really talented driver who got injured really badly that day and they didn't cover it much at all.
Jim, how tough is she? I've said to her recently maybe she should go on the motivational speaking circuit one of these days, and you know what she said? She said, I don't think it's much of a story.
Look, she plays it down, Dani Hill, but let's realise what she's been through and what she's achieved since she's been through it. It's amazing, and I admire her a lot, to be quite honest. She goes on with life as normal. She's had to readjust things. I mean, she's only got sight in one eye. She's had to readjust how she drives the car. She's had to readjust how she drives the horses, but she's just gone on, and I admire her a lot. And I think she should be a motivational speaker, but she probably needs someone to push her because she just wants to get on with life normally, I suppose.
Yes, well, that's true. Look, Jim, just in closing, I'll throw one at you. You've only been back a couple of weeks or a week from holidays. Have you seen anything to follow in that time?
Not really, Torrey. Not really at all. I think maybe just follow Dani Hill. She's got a chance of getting 100 winners this season. Time might run out. I really love milestones. I mean, Ryan Ryhorig's got a really good chance of getting 200 this season as well. Dani Hill again 100 this season. I hope they both achieve that. I think they're really talented young drivers who I saw come up through the pony ranks. So they were the original pony drivers, and I see so many of these young drivers when I call call them as kids. You know, they started driving at 6 years of age with their ponies, went to 16 years of age, and I've seen them achieve so much. And our top flight drivers are all from the pony ranks. You know, if you look at the honour list, as far as the females are concerned, Dani Hill, she used to drive the ponies. Ryan Rohorick, David Harding, Mark Billinger, they're leading, and again, all pony drivers. So I think people need to realise that the South Australian Harness Racing Pony Association play a really big role in harness racing. They help develop our children in the early stages of driving and learning about horses and how to drive them and how to keep them in the right gait. And I think the results show here in South Australia for sure. So I think, just keep following harness racing. Maybe follow Dani Hill. I mean, she's driven the first winner here today with our meeting, and she just keeps driving winners.
Jim, thanks for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Torrey. No, it's been good. Look, yeah, I mean, like I say, it took 15 years apprenticeship to get in the commentary box, but you can't get rid of me at this stage unless they sack me. That's the only way I'm going to go, or die.
No, don't do that. Not now, Jim. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Jacques, the voice of South Australian Harness Racing, and now you know he's just as good looking as well.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely. Thanks, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you,
Brilliant.
John.